talk about things that are happening around the teaching ministry of our church, but sometimes that are happening just around the body life of our church. And here we are heading into Thanksgiving weekend. My name is Dustin Rouse. To my right is Stephen Ganschow. Across the table from me is Pastor Steve. And then we have a special guest with us today, Rachel Smith. And we want to get to know Rachel just a little bit before we get into the topic for today. So Rachel, tell us a little bit about yourself.
My name is Rachel, and I've attended Bethel Crown Point for 8 years now. My husband, Mark, is a deacon here at this campus. I teach 4-year-olds, which is a lot of fun. And on Sunday mornings, I have 3 kids that also attend here as well.
That's awesome. Well, we are entering into Thanksgiving week, and a lot of times that can mean awkward dinners and sometimes awkward watching a football in the living room. Sometimes there's tension, sometimes there's just outright drama. And so we want to add some value to those who are listening to this conversation today. Practical tips, practical approaches to the holiday season and maybe seeing family they don't get to see often, and how to be the light of Christ in those situations. So I'm just going to open it up without any starting question, just to talk about how do you guys approach Thanksgiving to make sure that you can not add to the problem, but maybe be part of the solution.
Well, I'll jump in just to lay a little maybe theological foundation here for us. I think about 1 Peter, which is a letter written to Christians who are living in a very secular culture. And Peter emphasizes in various categories the need to live out the gospel. And he applies that. One family relationship that he applies it to in chapter 3 is a woman who's married to an unbelieving husband. And he urges her to win him over without words. The conduct of her life over time can say a lot of things about the gospel that maybe his eyes will see it, his ears won't hear it. And I think that for all of our people and Christians in general who are gathering with family and friends, these are people we love. These are people that, we want all of them to know Jesus and be under his grace. How can we do that on mission? How can we represent Jesus in those places? And a lot of it is not so much what we say about the gospel in particular, but the conduct of our lives. And I would encourage, maybe as a starting point, to view redeeming the holidays as seeing it as an opportunity, a gospel opportunity, to live out the gospel and to try, with God's help and grace, to have a tone and a vibe that displays the love of Christ and the grace of God. And hopefully that might open a door for spiritual conversation.
I think too, I come from a really solid Christian family, and I think that those same principles apply even when you're going to get together with other believers. When we get together for Thanksgiving, my family and I, we have ground rules for how it is that we interact. And again, we all know the Lord, but we all do something similar for a living. And what we find is very easily things can de-escalate almost into a glorified staff meeting.
I would love to be in your living room, dude, when that happens. Like to watch a bunch of Ganschow counselors counseling each other.
It's a free therapy session, right?
Can I come over for Thanksgiving?
Yeah. It's a long drive. Oh. It's a long drive. But in truth, we had to set up some parameters years ago so that we don't have to navigate the holidays so difficultly.
Can you give us one parameter?
So we only allow ourselves, because I do come from a family of counselors, we only allow ourselves 1 hour of shop talk. And that's a real rule. Yeah, 1 hour of shop talk, because we all kind of do the same thing. And at the holidays, you're going to find you collaborate and talk about, this is what I do for a living. Here's an update on my life. And when you all do the same thing, it's really easy for that to be the only thing that you talk about.
Right.
So we respect one another by not doing that within a parameter. So about an hour, and that's it.
And to that point, I think that it's important before we go into this season is understanding which character in the story we are. We're all playing a role, and I've been guilty of not having good character development in the story of my family, and I think we can change. But we have to assess who are we playing? Are we the villain? Are we instigating some of this? Are we stoking the flames of the family drama? And I think we can only really find out who we are by asking a person who's not going to flatter us, a spouse or a sister or a parent, somebody who's going to tell us the truth in love that, hey, your perception of this situation or the drama that the family has is not right, and they need to put you in check. Or, maybe we could just decide, do I want to be the peacemaker at this gathering? Like, am I going to be the person who brings, the verbal wet blankets to throw on the fires when they come, And even like sending a group text to some people and saying, I enjoyed this podcast on whatever, or this sermon was really great. And why don't we listen to it beforehand and discuss when we're there, so that we're like pre-gaming the game to be good, so that we have some logistics ahead of time, that we can talk about a book that we read this year that was inspiring, or movie we saw, whatever it is. It's all God's, and we're his, and he's Lord of all the conversation. But sometimes I think if we are intentional before we get there in our character, who we're going to play, what role we're going to have, it can make the difference in the actual dynamics of the family at that time.
That's huge. When I talk with people, and I've had a number of conversations already on approach to Thanksgiving, talking about the family story and what your identity is in your family, it is an incredibly proactive tool. Thinking about that in advance and kind of knowing, who are you going to be when you walk in the door?
Yeah.
Are you going to be who you were growing up, or are you going to be the vibrant believer that you are in every other area of your life? Kind of knowing who you're going to be in advance is game changing.
Yeah, I think, growing up as a kid, you go to the family Thanksgiving, holiday weeks, whatever, and you have no idea what's happening in the background. Then unfortunately, as you get older, you're a part of the drama that's in the background, and knowing how you're going to approach that week, and even like legitimately just as basically as praying for your own heart as you enter maybe a space that's hard for you. Because there is no perfect family. I mean, that's one thing to encourage anybody who's listening right now is we're all in ministry in different areas around this table, but man, none of us have perfect families. And sometimes I'm the chief of all sinners that enters that space and maybe messes up that perfect moment when the turkey's being cut or the football game is being watched. So how are some things, you said pre-gaming made me think, I think that would be an important. Sometimes we just drive to the thing, we show up, and we literally don't even think about how we're going to enter those spaces. Yeah. Are there practical things, maybe Steve, that you do or that you've seen or thought about or can encourage our family with here to, hey, before you go to that person's house for the Thanksgiving meal, here's a thing or two that you could maybe prepare heading into, especially if you know that there is tension.
Yeah. I think you have to have a good offense and a good defense, so.
Football, good.
Defense, yeah. On defense, Proverbs says a wise man sees danger and flees. And one thing about being a family is where the where the corpses are buried, or what's in the closets, and it's the temptation after you've gotten over the initial sort of niceties is to maybe go for the thing that you're arguing about. Go into the political conversation. Go into the, drama with sister or brother or whatever. And, these are things that are unhelpful and only stir the pot. So I would recommend on defense to be mindful of what is going to be off-putting, as far as it depends on you, dwell at peace with all men, Scripture also says, and to say I'm going into this with a posture of wanting to be a blessing to other people, which maybe is the offense that I would highlight, is that we often come with family and we want to be appreciated. We want to be valued for our accomplishments since the last time we got together. We want people to admire our children. We want, we're looking for kind of an identity and affirmation from family. And what happens with that is that now we are in a posture of we're wanting to receive. And better is to go in and say, I want to make much of everybody else's successes. I want to, celebrate their wins. I want to praise them, etc. And by doing that, now I'm playing defense from what is going to create drama, and I'm actually fueling the kind of grace words and grace talk that helps them have a good time and to enjoy it. And in the end, it's better for us.
Yeah.
Better for us.
Yeah.
Because, just to take one more sentence, people love to talk about themselves. And if you're okay not being talked about and you're okay with them talking, sharing, then they have a pleasurable experience and everybody's copacetic.
Well, to that point, I think that practically, in that same vein, the statement motion changes emotion. So I think sometimes when the room is tense and we're walking into that space that's tense and tight, physical motion changes the emotion of the room. And I think that if we brought a physical game plan with us where it's like, even if you're not hosting, asking the host or hostess beforehand, like, hey, can I bring some gift cards and we do like a scavenger hunt as a family when things like hit a lull? Because I think a lot of times family gatherings, I don't know about you guys, but it's a lot of sitting and eating, and then we're sitting some more, and now it's leading to good conversation, and then that's when things get dicey.
What about the families that run 5Ks after they
Okay,
eat?
well, that's not my family.
That's a whole other episode. We're not going to get into that today.
But I do think, ahead of time, thinking like when things are getting emotional, how can we get out of it by being physical? Like, hey, the family dog needs to go for a walk right now, or getting all the cousins together when that's going down and getting crazy, which we all know does. And let's go build a snowman or start a annual turkey bowl. Like, this is the first year. Like, practical ways of, hey, we've wanted to go try those holiday coffee drinks. Let's all go get them for everybody. It may take like self-sacrifice of thinking ahead and saying like an exit strategy with a spouse. Like, when we're going to give the nod and we're going to go. And not we're going to leave in anger or spite, but we're leaving with a purpose so that when we come back, we can breathe life into the room and into the family. And sometimes people just need a minute to take a drink of coffee and a deep breath and watch the kids play, that physical movement out of the emotional conversation that we can have at holidays.
You touched on something that I encourage people to do all the time, a signal. My wife and I, we have a signal that we use when it's time to go. And
now we all want to know what it is.
Yeah, no.
I'm going to be watching for that.
No, yeah, that's.
Is there an indicator?
Yeah.
I'm gonna throw you guys off by doing all kinds of
right.
things in the
Oh,
future
yeah.
when we're together. But knowing some of those things, like having a signal for your family, is super helpful. You mentioned too, taking a break. One of the things that I have found to be so detrimental when I kind of do after-action conversations with people is they stay in it, and they stay in a conversation that lingered on too long. And then they got drug into something they wish they hadn't stayed for.
Right.
So kind of knowing this is the moment to go take a break, it is a game-changing thing. But again, that's the proactiveness that we've got to have to plan in advance.
Yeah, for me, proactive is following the great theologian Elsa and just letting it go. Because sometimes, we just get into something and I want to be right. I want to have the final say, the final thing. And so for me, it's going into the whatever it is, the situation, and going, I'm just going to let it go. I'm going to let it go because it's not worth going to stage 3, 4, and 5 because it escalates and it's not fun. And for me, we don't live near family. So family time is very precious. We can't make it up the next week. So it's even more pressure on that moment of this is just, we're here for 3 days and then we're gone again for 3 months. So going in, knowing your own, you said character, knowing what my character I am and the deficiencies I have, and to proactively go, okay. And the second thing I would say is my wife is it's either a kick under the table or it's a look or it's a conversation at night, hey, you need to not. And to have the humility to listen and go, you're right. Okay, let's go. So any final concluding comments, just to encourage our family as we go into Thanksgiving week, just to enjoy that?
One thing I would say is that Scripture calls us to number our days, and all of us with our family, it's a finite number of days that we get to be with them. And if we burn them up with argument or discord, that's one less enjoyable experience that we get with grandma and grandpa, with brother, whoever. It's a finite number. And as I get older, I begin to realize that my numbers are getting smaller for myself, my parents, and it makes you want to treasure it more. And it helps you, I think, put up with maybe, some things that are not the way that you wish that they were, because this time is so valuable. And so I think taking the long view with the big picture helps us to make the most of these holidays.
Well, thanks for all the encouragements, y'all, and thanks, Rachel, for joining us today. And thank you for tuning in. Hopefully, this was a little bit helpful, a nugget or two for you as you enter Thanksgiving. We're praying that you have a great, great Thanksgiving week.